Now, Jim, it was 10 minutes, not 5. I apologize. Shoot your question over.
Okay, here's my question. Having been a CEO of a lithium battery company, I've kind of figured out there's more than just lithium that goes into those batteries. And I spent a whole lot more on separator, on packaging, on keeping the break room stocked so everyone doesn't leave on me, etc. There's, so I loved your chart there on the possible project timelines for lithium. Are there similar charts available for nickel, manganese, cobalt, good coffee in the break room, whatever the case may be?
Not that I can give you. That's the reality.
Okay, because the reality is this. At least when I was making batteries, okay, I realized 15 years ago the lithium problem, and I said, okay, let's assume tomorrow all the brine sources go away for whatever reason. Somebody buys them, like the Chinese or whatever, and I'm stuck with hard rock out in Nevada somewhere. At that point in the game, the batteries I was making, the actual cost of lithium was around 2% of the battery. If I went to hard rock mining, assuming I could get permits, I get it. If I went to hard rock mining, that doubled the price of my lithium. It went from 2% to 4%. And we say rounding error. Okay.
Oh yeah. Quick question. Not to cut you off. I want you to keep talking. But what year was this when you were doing this?
Oh God, 10 years ago.
So the problem is lithium was so cheap then, and it's gone up. I don't have a number from the actual difference, but it's gone up hundreds to thousands of % in cost since then, especially last year. And so it used to be, like a rounding error, 1%, whatever. Now it's like it could be 5 to 7. And so it's really
I'm going to push back on you though, because if you looked at the cost of separator in that time frame, it's just as bad. I look at the cost of everything. Yes, lithium went up. So did cobalt, so did manganese. Nothing has gone down. But my point being is simply this. Everything you raised with lithium is absolutely correct. I'm not disputing that at all in terms of its importance and cost and all the issues that you raised with it. But it's not just lithium.
Oh no, everything is going up. No, 100%. So your point of so if you go to the limiting factor video, he shows a great video of like 5-10 years ago battery production and now, where 5-10 years ago the bill of materials for the battery was like 40-50%, and now it's like 70-80%. Because everyone thought, bigger production, average cost curve, it's going to go down. No, it's done this, and now it's going back up because of the supply issues. So no, that point is 100% true. The only other thing I have in this presentation that speaks to it, but I'm going to go pull up something else from another presentation, is so this one at the very, very end, we have this one on some of the other materials needed, right? And so the only one that really, cobalt going up a little bit because people are switching, even though a much larger quantity of batteries, people are switching to LFP, but the natural graphite, that is an enormous increase in natural graphite as just one material, which normally graphite's basically dirt. It's very cheap. People don't think about the cost of graphite. It's like, again, a couple % of a battery, if that on a good day. But if that's what is needed and that's what the supply is, and that doesn't grow to scale, it's going to go up in cost, right? The same thing. And so, separator too, where separators are being found to be much more sort of performance enabling or safety enabling also, which then are more expensive, higher cost, more complex. And so you're seeing a lot of like specialty, multi-layer, ceramic coated, multi-material. You go look at the Dreamweaver stuff, for example, which is like, Kevlar aramid fiber. That's there's always trade-offs and everything, but like, more specialty materials, more complex processes, more expensive. And if you enable something like, higher safety so that it doesn't blow up or it blows up less badly when there's a problem, it's worth the cost.
Yeah. Also you guys have to understand margins usually in the battery industry do not start from the bottom. Margins get beat from the top down, right? So like, for example, miners.
Well, but that's true in a demand oriented economy when there's enough supply.
Yeah,
that is true, but we are shifting right now towards a supply dominated market because I get to choose who gets to build batteries if I'm the lithium supplier right now. You buy from me or you don't get
Well,
to
that's my point, right? Which is like the batteries themselves have ultra terrible margins, like automotive margins. It's the materials going into the batteries that actually have all of the margins. Actually, if you look at it, if you probably took like direct cost of a battery and you said there was no margin between the material maker and the actual outputted product, the price would probably be significantly different. My rough guess was probably like 3x cheaper. And that's why we said that one of the potential solutions is the vertical integration, because basically at this point, margins are just what's need to come down in order to make these more cost effective, right? Like if I go back to the car model, right? Like let's say you buy, you know, the cheapest EV on the market right now is a Tesla, realistically speaking. And let's say you buy a $47,000 Tesla, which is actually what it costs before you put in the $7,500 of tax credits and the $2,000 of the California incentive. So let's assume you don't have those credits because that's kind of cheating. So it's 47 grand. And the potential fuel savings over the duration of the car is 6 grand over a 6-year period. Well, the reality is it's twice the cost to insure an EV as it is a normal ICE engine. So like you're getting that 6 grand over 6 years, you're actually paying more in insurance than you're saving in fuel cost. So if you start with a 27 grand vehicle, there's no math that says the EV is more practical, more economically justifiable, even a hybrid. I take a Prius.
And just to cut you off real quickly, so back to your point, Jim. So this is from the Volta Foundation battery report presentation, and this is somewhat self-serving because this is my slide that I made. But basically here you see costs of both LFP and NMC from Q1 2022 to Q1 2022, and this is just those two. And you see that everything goes up, right? Absolutely everything. But the things that go up the worst are the lithium, right? And that was that huge, you know, price jump, you know, in that sort of 2022 period. But you can look here. I mean, even just in that, you know, 2-year period, literally every single component except for the iron went up significantly in both chemistries. And you look 10 years ago, you know, same thing, except it's just, you know, the slope's a little bit less then, and then it just spiked as all the gigafactories are announced, and there's just not enough materials, right? So you get to charge more.
Yeah, but there's something very particular about this. First, the lithium went down after that. Second,
True.
The lithium is a non-regulated market. It's not a commodity. So that price means nothing because lithium is sold with like 5 years contracts. So who paid that price? We don't know. But the people using lithium today has bought the lithium 5 years ago.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And like you say, basically all prices like this, you know, the spot pricing, that last, you know, 5, 10, 20% that's sold is what determines what the price is on the open market. So you're right. There are longer term supply contracts that are much cheaper, but a lot of times they're also variable. And so they do go up as market price goes up. And that's,
Yeah,
I mean, starting to really hurt people right now too.
If I'm a lithium producer right now, I'm going away from fixed price contracts and I'm going full variable.
The video from Albemarle that's about half a year old that we link in one of the resources at the bottom, that one specifically talks about that, how they are leaving fixed price contracts because they think the price is just going to keep going up. So they want variable to make sure that as it goes up, they're getting covered. You know, and some purchasers will have the power to fight back on that in quantity, but I think most probably won't, because either they buy from them or they don't have supply. Especially in the United States and the facilities they're building in the US, because to get the IRA credits for the cars, you have to have a certain percentage of your materials, which goes up each year from the US. And, you know, that starts making a difference if you can get those or not. So you'll pay more for the lithium here, so you get the tax credit if it pencils out, right? The other fun thing is actually the limiting factor stole that half of the slide. They stole the pricing here from the Volta Foundation slide. So I was when I was flipping through that, I was like, oh my God, that's my slide. I was really excited about it. Okay.
You guys have been missing, like I'm having a great chat with just averaging and the side thing about availability and everything.
Sure. You know, and like ultimately, because again, we're using public information and some of this is dated or wrong, or there's disagreements. Really what Jeff and I just want to highlight are kind of the questions of like, what is the goal of all of this? How are we heading there? What are the problems? What are potential solutions? And just make sure that people are kind of keeping that all in mind as we sort of, you know, quite honestly, I just love that quote of the electrify the status quo, because that to me is a great way of saying what I've been feeling for a year or two now, which is just that we're kind of like racing off the cliff for a good reason, but maybe kind of a little bit aggressive of a direction, or not fully thinking about how to make it work for that goal, as opposed to make profit selling batteries and EVs, right? Which unfortunately is the incentivizer, you know, get the subsidies and sell, you know, a high margin new product to everyone, right? That's what's incentivizing the battery and EV companies, right? So.
One comment on the slide that you put up. So am I right that it's showing that for materials, LFP was more expensive in Q1 of 22 than NMC 811?
So the data was, I believe, LG's cell data during that time frame. I'll double check that. But basically, there was like specific lines they were making with specific supply chains, and you can't say industry-wide because everybody has different distances and costs and stuff, but at least for the same type of cell of the same size with the same different chemistries over that time frame, you could see how all the materials changed. And I'm sure there's stuff in there where it's different maker or multi-source, or they changed a component somehow, but you can still see kind of everything else relatively held the same, what the differences are. So it's more of in itself, it's an apples to apples comparison, but as soon as you pull it out to industry wide, you do lose some of the direct stuff. So I can't say for sure, but for sure what happened is everybody went for LFP because they thought it'd be cheaper, and the price of LFP went up because of it. That's pretty self-explanatory. I can't say specifically they doubled or not, but.
Also, I believe the recycle value of LFP is much less than NMC.
We're going to cover that in our next presentation,
I mean,
but
so
that's one of the big problems is it might not be worth recycling an LFP battery. And oh shit, everyone's going LFP. That's a big problem.
So I personally, and the message I try to give out is that these economics should factor in the recycle value, because, you know, it is value that is there that can be captured at the end of life of the cell. And with that alone, with the increase in prices of LFP, I think NMC is cheaper. And then, you know, we're working on unlocking the world's biggest source of nickel and cobalt that will drive the prices down even further. So, you know, I think this rush to LFP on pricing isn't necessarily what's realistic.
Yeah, and to close it off here on recycling, guys, you can recycle batteries effectively into other products like grease. But you remember, in the giant scheme of things, if a battery sells for $7, it somehow has to be used, transported, which is expensive and has hazards, recycled, and then all made again for that $7. And that is the current problem.
Hey everybody, I think we have the 50 of the most